Hello everybody. Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar. So today we're going to prepare something very exciting, but before we actually start talking about it, please tell me, can you hear me? Is everything fine? So our plan for today is to basically start with something interesting, and that's why we're going to simply go through the basics of our plan. So what are we exactly going to do today? We're going to make this as interesting as possible, but also we're going to create all of those models in the fastest possible way so you don't waste time. And all of you guys that already have your PDF files, get ready, because we're going to start modeling right away. But don't worry, because if you cannot catch up, it's okay. You will be able to watch this a little bit later. So without any further ado, this is our plan and you already know what we're going to do. So let's just try to jump into what's actually going to be our plan. So today we're going to start modeling this beautiful bedroom, and this is going to be mostly made by our hands. Some models are going to be created by us online, and some of them are going to be handed to you. So guys, without any further ado, this is our final goal. So this is going to be an image that you too will be able to produce with Viz Academy. And the final thing we actually want to show you is that we will be able to manipulate this object, this beautiful image, in real time. So you will be able to create many moods and many options for your clients just in seconds. So buckle up, because we're about to start. Guys, of course, since you joined us, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Viz Academy. So those of you that just joined in, we are Viz Academy, an online school that will teach you how to become a professional in less than 7 weeks. That means that we are able to teach anybody how to create visuals just like those seen or on our Instagram. That is pretty much all of those images that you can see, except those that we market for this workshop, are created by our students only. So that means that you too can be among them. All of those images are just created by our students, and let me just grab one of them so we can basically link to their Instagram. You can check them out. So this is Irene. She's actually she blocked her account, it seems so. So anyway, guys, visit our Instagram. It's going to be great. And whenever you're online, just check out our Viz Academy website. Anne is almost always online. So if you have any questions about our course, just go ahead and ask away. So Viz Academy is not your ordinary course where we just simply send you videos and farewell. No, we give you much more. In our chat, you will see that we have a little bit of a crowd, and some of this nice crowd is actually our students. So guys, if you will, you can ask them questions. We also have our support on chat. This is how we operate. Whenever you join Viz Academy, you will have access to live support almost 24 hours a day. It's of course limited, but not entirely, because you can ask as many questions as you like and we will answer all of them. If you have some kind of problems with 3ds Max, or you don't understand any topic, well, we will be able to help you out. By the way, guys, if you want to learn even more than we offer, just ask questions. We meet 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. just like this on webinars. We also give you a personalized homework, so tasks that you have to carry on, and of course we assist you. So our support is going to be at your assistance almost 24 hours a day, and that's nothing, well, nothing beats that. And well, without any further ado, visit our website, that's www.vizacademy.uk, and let's get started, because I think we all came here to talk about 3ds Max. So guys, one thing that we want you to start from is the image that we've sent to you. How do you actually add an image into 3ds Max? We don't add it as a background, that's a bad idea. What we want you to do is read the size in pixels of the image. So pretty much you just have to read this size of the image that we sent you. So it's the floor plan, and we're going to be able to add this image to this object as we go. Now, as you can see, it's looking good. So let's just make sure that the proportions are fine. To not waste time, I'm not going to type them in. I already did that. So let's get started. By the way, guys, just a reminder, this is our final goal. This is what we're going to create. Of course, we're not going to model everything today, but we're going to get really, really close. So buckle up and let's get started. A lot of you will think that when modeling in 3ds Max, you have to be super precise. Well, yes, but not exactly. We're creating 3D visuals, and that is actually something that is going to be a good thing to let go of, with a little bit of detail. But first, since we're using an image, we cannot really leave out any kind of scaling. So let's start from that. Since I know that we've sent you this image, I know that this nightstand is basically going to be 70 centimeters wide, but as you can see, this is not really looking good because it's way too big. So what can we do about this? When you go to edit, you've got this nice tool, and that is transform toolbox. In this case, we're going to use it to manually set this object into the proper scale. Then we will use our object scale to translate this to our floor plan. This is going to be very handy because, believe me, a lot of your clients are going to send you a lot of images just like this one. So guys, by the way, can you is everything okay? Can you hear me? Is everything here? Because can someone slow down? I haven't even started. So guys, I haven't even started yet. I just created a box and a floor plan. So you simply go ahead and create a floor plan. Type in the same values as I did. So it's 160 by 64 and 31 by 07. It's going to be enough to basically cover it for now. And as I said, we're going to try to scale all of it. And let's see what is chat actually doing now. So guys, again, where are you from? How long do you work with 3ds Max? What is the biggest goal you have ahead of you in regards of 3ds Max, and why do you want to actually learn 3ds? So guys, let's just continue and let's get to work. So now, since we opened this toolbox, let me repeat that. It's Edit Transform Toolbox. It's a very handy tool. It will allow you to do a lot of stuff. First thing I like to do is just copy this object, and since I know I want this object to be 70 centimeters wide in y-axis, I only need to type in 70 here, set this axis and set size. So now what happened is without changing the length, this object was rescaled, and I can simply read this scale from what I already have. How did I import the image? You simply drag and drop it on already existing plane. So let's just do that. And if you have an existing plane, all you need to do is drag and drop your image. So this is it. This is how you do it, and then you type in those values that I am displaying right now. So I'm just going to copy them into our chat so you can actually see that. Okay. Okay, so I just did, and let's just continue. So since we already scaled this, I'm going to copy this scale from the y-axis and use it for this whole object, and let's just get into it. By the way, guys, remember that you will be able to re-watch this webinar later on. So let's copy this scale from y-axis to our main floor plan that we're going to use, type it in the world coordinates, and just press enter. Now, when we create a box, just following this object, you will notice that this image is now in a proper scale. So we're actually creating something that is 70 centimeters wide, and that's a very good thing. So by the way, guys, let's quickly jump through our objects into the scene to see what exactly we're going to create. So since this is one of the most important elements of our scene, we're going to make sure that we only model what is needed. So quite surprising, right? And we left this whole wall just empty without anything because we're not going to benefit from that. So let's examine those objects a little bit further. You can actually catch up, guys. So now this is one of the models we're going to create. This is a very fancy armchair from Polyform, I guess. I'm not really sure about that, but I'm sure that it's going to be a nice thing to model out and learn a little bit extra. So this is one of the things we're going to do, and also, we're going to model out one of the chandeliers. We're not going to do this one because it takes a little bit more time, and it's going to be a little bit well, we're limited by our time. So let's continue and actually jump into our more accessible models, and I think we're going to be able to create this in just a few seconds. So this is one of the models we're going to guide you through. This technique that I'm going to show you is going to be very, very helpful to you guys. Of course, we're also going to create curtains. Those are always really welcome to have in your scenes. So luckily, we're not going to waste time on any kind of simulations. We're going to show you the easiest, quickest, and best ways how to do that. So late to the party. Don't worry, you can still catch up. We're just getting started. 12 years of Blender, 1 year in 3ds Max, and 2 years in Maya. That's a lot of experience, I would say. So this is on a chat. Keep going. Okay, so let's keep going. By the way, guys, wait a sec. By the way, you will be able to follow all of my webinar gibberish. Sorry. All of this is going to be able to, you're going to be able to follow all of this just in a second. Right after the webinar is over, you will be able to rewatch it at any time. So I cannot stress this any further, and let's go to our modeling. So first thing we do is clean up all the mess that we created because we don't really need it at this moment. Next, we're going to start from simply creating a line. As I already shown you, we're going to simply go through our modeling by creating a line. This is what we teach our students, and this is what we hope that you guys will remember, because it's the fastest way to do this. Of course, you can be a little bit more precise if you wish, but honestly, this is not something necessary, especially since this is image that we're trying to recreate and not exactly a CAD file that you usually get from your clients, but we're exploring a possibility that your client is going to send you a little bit more messy files that are going to be a little bit harder to follow. So that's why we're starting with an image and not exactly something else. So once you create it and outline it, all of those key points in your room, I left out the doors intentionally because I don't need to add them in. And next step, what I'm going to do is just simply extrude this whole object. I'm going to set 3 to 5 as my room's height, and I'm not going to cap it, or I'm not going to cap the bottom or the end of it because I don't need to. I just don't want to do that. So as you can see, we already have our base for the model. So let's just add in a little bit more segments on the right side, and let's continue by going through all of this. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, ask them in chat, because all the time both our Skype chat and our live chat on YouTube is working. So if you want to say something, you just can do that at any time. Our support is going to be able to answer you at any time. I'm going to set up my windows height to 240 centimeters, and I want them to be 200 centimeters tall. That's why I'm going to put the bottom of it at the 40. So just to avoid any problems with light intersection, I'm going to make sure that my ground level is actually going to be lower than 0. So in this case, I'm going to type in -15, but it's not going to play a big role in my scene. Now, what we can do is select all 3 window openings and simply extrude it inwards. So this way, you'll notice that we're creating our windows hole. Now, we're going to delete those objects, but to save a little bit time later, I'm actually going to detach this. So we're going to be able to add all the necessary elements to our scene. So this is going to later be our window. So pretty much the glass of it. So first of all, let's start from those pesky curtains. A lot of you guys asked me how to do the curtains, how to create them, and what software should you use to simulate them. Honestly, you should not simulate your curtains, mostly because it's a very easy thing to do. Just look at this. This is going to be very easy traceable in 3ds Max. So let's just try to do it using any kind of tools that we have available. And for this, I'm just going to make sure that I don't step out of the line. So I'm just going to set up some kind of boundaries. This is an optional thing. So you don't have to do it, but I just want to make sure that I don't go outside this border. So next thing we're going to do is just simply create some zigzags, just like this. Make sure that you go all the way and just try to create something that is going to be as smooth as possible, but make sure that it's going to be as random as possible. So simply just go to Creation Panel, select Splines, and simply click on Create. So now we're going to create lines, and as you can see, I'm really being sloppy. I'm not trying hard to do anything about this. I'm just going to create those curtains anyway. So right now, when I did all of this, I can select all of those Beziers and simply click on Smooth. So select all of those vertices by pressing 1, right click, and go for Smooth. This way you have this nice smoothed out version of the same curtain. If you want to go a little bit further, you can Bezier them, so Bezier corner, and try to scale those that really do not look good in your eyes. So I think that we can pretty much change those two. Okay, at this point, what I'm going to do is extrude it again. So extrude is a really nice tool, and I really like to use this because it's very helpful. In most of the cases, it's going to save you a lot of time. So let's just go ahead and do that. Now, as you can see, it's not yet looking that good. So we're going to go back to our line, go for interpolation, and change this interpolation to 2. We don't want too many polygons at this moment. We just want a very primitive object, just like so. Now, since this is done, we're going to be able to convert this to editable poly. And again, we're going to select all of those edges that we have in the middle and create as many lines as we need. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to add in 17 because in this case I know I'm going to have quite nice proportions, and as you can see this is already looking good but not yet perfect, and we're going to go for perfection this time. So on top of all of this, we're going to add a noise modifier to further randomize our object. So just simply type in some values, just don't make them too big, make sure that we type in smaller values, and we go through all of this stuff during our course. We help our students how to create models. We tend to give them really good advice how to create models if they want to challenge themselves. But of course, it all depends on what exactly you want to achieve. So in this case, we're going to just add a little bit of a noise modifier. I think we don't need the x-axis to be that strong, so I'm just going to add 1 on it. So right now it's looking even better. So let's add a little bit more randomization, a little bit less on Z, and again on top of this we're going to add turbo smooth. And this is how you can do a curtain just in a few seconds. So how do we bend it now? I basically answered my own question by simply asking it, and we're going to use bend modifier. So just to put it in, we're going to simply place our curtain where we need it. Since it's a really nice model, I shouldn't have really converted to editable poly at this point because we didn't need to, but it's still going to be very much usable. So add bend modifier, which is the very first modifier you ever learn learning 3ds Max. So let's just add in angle 90 degrees. So you're going to notice that, well, we created a rainbow, and this is not exactly what we're going for. So we're going to test out our axis. So in this case, y-axis is not working and x-axis looks way weirder than I thought. So let's just change the direction by 90 degrees, and this is going to solve it in the x-axis. So again, it's bending backwards and it's not really helping our cause. So in this case, we're going to have to limit this effect. And for this, I'm going to type in limit effect and just pretty much set how much I want to change the limit distance. So it's just going to work on this limited axis. So if we would measure at this distance, it would be actually, without the angle here, it would be 13 centimeters, and I think something around that is going to be okay. And let's type in a -90, so we're going to have a really nice curtain, and this is it. This is how you create your nice curtains, and this is exactly how I did them in my interior. So now by adding 2x2 modifier, I'm able to just simply add in this to our stock. Now guys, as you can see, we already have quite a lot of objects to cover, so let's just go through the basics of most of them. If you want to make your curtains a little bit more fancier, you may want to basically try to align them properly, but what is also going to be a good idea is to add this small but significant detail. And how to do that? We simply select one of the edges on our curtain. So double click on one of the edges. So go to sub object level 2. And then what you can do is simply go for create shape from selection. If you do that and click on linear, it's going to perfectly follow this shape that you already created. So now what I'm going to do is simply select this shape that I created. Now here it is. Okay, so let's have it selected. So this is this editable spline, and on top of all of the addition I did, I'm just going to add rectangular as my rendering. So first of all, enable it in render and enable it in viewport. So it's going to be a very, very helpful thing. Now, we're going to make sure that the length is not going to be too big. Something around 2 centimeters should be enough, but the width should be really small. So make it slightly bigger than your curtain right now. And as you can see, now we have a really nice fancy finish for our curtains. And this is going to pay off because in the end, when you add in all of your modifiers, it's going to look really great. And as you can see now in our 3ds Max, it's looking really nice. So let's jump back to clay mode, and as you can see, you can barely tell any difference between my previously created curtains and those that we created now. So we can move this object to our newly created scene. So let's just simply transplant both of them into our scene, so we don't have to waste any time on recreating them here. So let's just add them in. Can I watch this video after? Will this be uploaded to your account? Yes, it will. It will be online and you will be able to follow it at any time. So remember, if you cannot really follow now, or you would like to ask a little bit more questions rather than focus on modeling, you can do it right away. So our next step is to simply add mirrors of our curtain. So let's just copy it, click on the mirror option, create a copy, and simply create a mirror for the second side. You can create separate curtains for each of those objects, but I do not recommend this because nobody is going to pay that much attention. Unless you start seeing some patterns, then you should basically start doing a little bit more of those. So as you can see, everything looks really fine and we have nice curtains already set in. So let's change this to clay mode so we can actually see a little bit more. Okay, so we're at the beginning, right? So let's add the let's add the shell modifier. So click on the stack of modifiers, click on shell, and just add it in to make sure that we have a little bit of thickness on our room. Don't go for inner amount, we're going to go for outer amount. It doesn't matter how much you add, just add a little bit of it. So we're actually going to get really nice thick walls, but it is not necessary in this case to follow any kind of floor plans. We're just doing this so no light is going to bleed in later on. So now let's just carry on and continue by simply going for box modeling again. We're going to cap this ceiling by creating a simple box. So the next step is to simply create a box, as I did right now. And we're going to do exactly the same for the floor, but in reality, we're not going to focus on the floor that much and make the floor a little bit lower than 0, or just keep it at 0. Don't put it up at any point. So now we can basically start by adding our camera. So I'm going to go for a regular camera, so everybody who doesn't have Corona yet installed can actually follow this webinar. So let's just simply add our camera into the scene and change the field of view so it's going to look a little bit more like in our image. So comparing this to, I think we're pretty close, not exactly what we're going for, but I think it's going to be good enough for now. So we can keep it that way, but basically we're going to fix it later. Okay guys, so as you can see, we basically created most of this interesting stuff in just a few seconds. So it took us a little bit longer than we anticipated because there's a lot of questions going on. But guys, if you have any questions, just ask them now. And where are you from? Because I see that we have quite a lot of audience, and I'm really happy to see that, well, we have a lot of people here. What is the shortcut to changing the focal length? As you can see at the right hand side at the bottom, we have this small field of view. So that's angle icon, and you can simply press on it and just simply start changing it. If you feel a little bit more comfortable just selecting the camera, click on camera right here, select it, and you can set the focal length to something around 20 and it's going to be just fine. So the next thing we're going to create is going to be the chandelier. So let's examine this model a little bit further because we haven't yet done that. So as you can see, it looks really complicated because it has all of this all of this nicely looking stuff, and well, how can we do this? Because manually positioning all of this stuff is going to take us ages, and we definitely don't have that much time. So let's just do it the 3ds Max way and just simply recreate it. I'm using this model as a reference, and later on you too will get the reference model, so don't get discouraged that I already am cheating. So let's just make sure that everybody can follow later on. So I'm going to set up a 16.5 centimeters for the radius. Remember to check if you use comma or dot as your separator in 3ds Max. It always changes depending on the language you're using. So now, since we already have this, we're going to use all of those splines to our advantage. So first of all, what I'm going to do is convert this to editable poly and scale it down. So let's make it a little bit flatter. So as always, we're doing this. How do you give thickness to walls? You can add a shell modifier on top of your object. We're going to do that in a second. By the way, you know what? I'm going to step back a notch, and basically I'm going to add a little bit more sides to my object. So let's go for 64, so we won't have to use turbo smooth on this object later on. So Control Z or create this object once more, and at this point we're going to basically make sure that we follow all the instructions. So since we already know what we're creating, I'm just going to select the middle part, extrude it inwards, click on the setup, because the setup is the most important here, and we're going to change this from local or group from group to local, so it's going to use the local normals, and this way we can actually change this to go inwards. And as you can see, we already created this object, so let's delete the original one because we don't need this. And now our next step is to simply add a little bit more inset, just to make sure that everything that we're working on is going to be precise and it's going to look good, so we don't have any hollow objects. So click on bridge to create this nice opening in this object. Okay, so now we have this ring, and I think it's time to basically start the magic. So we're going to move this aside and simply try to create something out of it. Go to the shapes and click on we're going to click on helix to basically create it in the middle of our object. So just make sure that you cover all of those rings, start somewhere in the middle. You don't have to be precise. You can readjust it later. And once you create it, it's going to set up to change to the second creation tab, and where you basically have to set up the height, and once that is done, you're going to set up the twist. So this is how it's supposed to look like, but we're going to still go to modify panel, select it, and type in 4 turns, and make sure that the height is going to be suitable for our needs. I know that it's going to be a little bit I'm just going to eyeball it, and let's type in something around 105, 110, something like this. I think it's going to be enough, because we're going to make sure that our object is ending where this object is basically starting its first diamond shape, whatever that is. So 108, I guess. Okay, so what do we do now? Then after we created this helix, we can basically go ahead and create some kind of object that we're going to use as our diamond. So you don't have to create something like this. This is total overkill. Somebody who created this earlier was a little bit crazy. So we're going to do it the easier way and just simply create a box. Make sure that it's the proper length, and let's make it as tall as the previous object, just so it's going to be nice and smooth. So let's just make sure that it's tall enough. Okay, so let's add a little bit of height to it. So it's basically 30 centimeters, okay? So since this is 30, I'm going to convert this to editable poly. Again, select this polygon, number 4 to select poly. Bevel just a little bit, so we're going to create this diamond shape, and if you need to readjust it, just do it. Don't worry, you can readjust it as much as you want. You can even change the shape if you need, but at this point we're not going to do that, just for the sake of this video. So sorry, not video, webinar. Hello from Bosnia. That's nice. I never met somebody from there, so well, it's nice to actually create something for people from all around the world. I'm actually super surprised how many people from how many countries show up to our webinar. And that brings me to a good segue where we can talk a little bit about Viz Academy. So Viz Academy is an online school that will teach you how to create beautiful 3D visualizations in just a few weeks. As you all guys know, we created this really interesting, and what is really the best thing about it, effective course on how to create 3D visuals. You can enroll today because, guys, I need to tell you that right now the number of seats is limited, and we're running out of spaces. Since this is a lockdown and everybody's at home, we figured that we're going to create something nice for you guys and basically do a little bit of this free webinar. But of course, remember guys, this is just a small demo of our course, because the full experience is way more informative. And even though this is going to be a goldmine for some of you, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would benefit more during our course. So remember guys, sign up today because the number of seats is limited, and what is very important is that the first people to sign up and buy the product are basically going to get their spot. So don't hesitate, just visit vizacademy.uk and sign up for our course today. And as you can see, all of those beautiful 3D renders were created by our students only. We do not post our work unless it's a video, and that's going to be something. And basically all the renders you see were created by our students. That is very important. So you can trace them down by simply clicking on their Instagram if you want to, but I would definitely contact us instead, because we're the ones that are going to help you learn 3ds Max. So let's go back to our modeling, and we left off at this spot where we basically had this going on. By the way guys, in our chat you can see some of our former students, and they do recommend us, and some of those guys in chat are our current students, and they still recommend us. So that's really something, and I'm really proud that we do good impression. We do we did create something that is valuable. And guys, now go to your creation panel, select Corona. For those of you that haven't installed Corona, skip this step. You won't be able to do it yet, but it won't also require you to activate Corona. So those of you that do have Corona, please continue. Now, we're going to simply set up a scatter. So distribute on object, that's the helix, and we're going to add it in just like I did with this plus here. Now, the second thing we're going to do is just add the newly created box as our distributed object. And as you can see, nothing happens. That's because what we need to do next is change this to enable and 1D spline. Well, this is looking weird, but let's now change the view type to full to exactly understand what is happening. So as you can see, this is not really aligning as we planned because it's following the normal of this helix. It does create a nice effect, but it's not what we needed. That's why we're going to add this here. So this align to normal. If you go for positive value, all of those objects are going to stand tall, but if you add a negative value, they're going to go down. So this is going to be a very, very helpful tip for you. And we still need to make sure that all of those objects are basically rotated 180 degrees. So let's just type in that here. Now, this is starting to look good, but definitely not good enough. So what can we do about this object? We can basically change the distance of our spacing between the objects. By default, you're going to have the setting of 4 centimeters. So let's just add a little bit less than that. I think 2 centimeters is going to be a good size to add in. You can add just a hint of randomization on all of the axes to have a little bit more interesting effect, a little bit more shiny effect, if you will. So we get a little bit more randomization. Just check this out. We can randomize them in real time. This is really a piece of cake. Just don't overdo this. Basically just create this to the smallest extent, and the next step is to add a circle. Circle is going to be just in the middle of our object, so align it properly, make sure that it's in the middle. You don't have to snap it, it's not rocket science, it's just something that we're going to use as our second shape for this nice ring around our object. So let's just select our scatter again, go to our distribute objects and add this object again. F3 to quickly swap between your regular view and wireframe mode. So again, we did this, and what happened here is our 2 objects misaligned. So what can we do about it? We can simply select this object, convert it to editable spline, and while we're at it, we're going to press number 3, so it's spline, and go for reverse. In this case, it's going to reverse all of those objects, and we're going to get really nice effect. One thing that is still missing is this hook that allows us to basically anchor all of those objects to something. So let's just add it in and simply do a small line that is going to be enough to cover this object. So it's hard to actually see what I'm doing, so let's move it to a side, and I'm just going to blatantly create some kind of hook that is going to be enough to cover this problem. This is basically what you do. You don't have to be precise. This is going to be a microscopic detail, still visible, but not really that important. Change this to smooth or play around with the Beziers if you will, but in this case, you don't have to do it. The last thing you will need to do is go for rendering. Here, enable it in the viewport, enable in render, and make this a little bit thinner because we don't need it to be as thick. Convert this object to editable poly and make sure that you move it into the middle of your previous object. So let's just move it somewhere closer to our box. Just put it somewhere in the middle of it. Don't be precise about it. It's going to be a microscopic detail, and let's just simply attach this object. You don't have to do any booleans here because it's just going to create unnecessary mesh. And what is beautiful about scatter here is that this object is going to be updated just as we go. So since we added this object, this new hook to our okay, this is interesting. So our object is upside down. That's why we're going to change this one significant detail. So we're going to go for effect pivot, move it up, place it somewhere around this hook. So this is the correct place. So go to hierarchy, affect pivot only, move it up, and this is how we do it. Since we already have it rotated, I'm going to basically walk a few steps back and simply go ahead and add a positive value. So we're going to basically have what we need. Again, all of those splines are going to require a little bit of rotation, but we can also just simply change it back, and voila, we've got our beautiful chandelier in just a few seconds. So guys, we're going to also what you need to know is that during our course we go step by step and talking about all of those interesting small elements that I missed here or just simply glance over, because honestly this is a online live webinar, so I cannot really focus on all of the detail because we've got a lot of stuff ahead of us. That's why I am really sorry that I'm not going through all the detail. How I get here, how I get here. Okay, I guess you're lost. Guys, so those of you that started working with 3ds Max, because I've seen a lot of you that basically are professionals, tell me what rendering engines are you using and why it is not Corona. Corona renderer is something that I found to be the most interesting in my whole career because it's fast, easy, and very helpful. Now, again, I'm going to Control V this shape, this helix that I had earlier. So I'm going to change this into a renderable spline again, just to have this small detail inside. So let's make it rectangular, a little bit thinner. So let's just make sure that it's basically going to be what we need. And again, at the end, when we're done with our scatter, the final touch we're going to do is simply convert this to max geometry. Okay, so this is now done and we can delete this scatter. We don't need it at this moment. We could keep it, but I don't want to because I want to make this a group and use it later on. So that's one of the objects that we wanted to add in. Basically, it's taking us a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we're going to go through all of the stuff that we had planned. I think we're going to skip one of the objects though, because both the sofa and the armchair are very similar. So now we're going to have to create this ceiling detail, so we're actually finished with all the walls. So as I said, we're basically creating those objects in seconds. Without me talking, this would take me maximum 3 minutes, and that's why it's a 3ds Max is the most powerful tool. So you use V-Ray. By the way, I'm talking to both chats on our Skype and our on our YouTube channel. So please do not spam with those 6s if you could, because we're going to have to remove you. And yeah, that's really nice of you that you're so positive here. Teach that a light animation video also in this bedroom. Okay, I may do that if you will. If you stay with us for all 3 days of our webinars, I promise you that we're going to glance over it and we're going to basically talk a little bit more about this video and making of. So I'm not going to show you exactly how to do it now, but I'm going to play it since it's actually quite nice. So you all know this, and as you can see, this is going to be our final effect. So once more, let's play this for our audience, and we're going to do all this detail. So now let's focus on the sofa modeling. I think we're going to have to split it in more than just webinar for this modeling, but of course we're here to readjust if we need to. Okay, so as I said, we're going to skip this armchair because the armchair is not really going to be as educational as this sofa, because the sofa has many more tricks to go through, and it's going to be a little bit more interesting, and it basically covers both of those objects. So guys, you can vote now what object you would prefer me to model next. So if you want, I can go for armchair. I can also go for the sofa, but I recommend you going for the sofa. What game is this? The game is called 3ds Max, and welcome to professional world of 3D rendering. Chandelier, great work. I also think so, because 3ds Max allows this. So let's just focus on the sofa now, and let's just see what exactly can we do about this object. So this is a very basic object without the turbo smooth, but once we add the turbo smooth on, you can see that it's basically really impressive. And again, we're going to go to the final product, that is this sofa, and as you can see, it's even more impressive. So let's just go through this, and let's guide you through all of these elements. I know that's so okay, it's basically sofa one, so let's go through the sofa. So when modeling objects like this, you have to have some reference. In this case, I'm going to use my own model because it's well, a little bit easier for me this way, but of course in reality you would be using some kind of product shots, product photos, or just blueprints of that object from the manufacturer. So yeah, this time we're going to use 3D model just for this convenience and just to make this a little bit faster. So we're going to go through this, and by the way guys, remember you're getting these models later on after this webinar, so you will be able to check them out, test what was done with them, and of course learn a little bit more from them. Okay, without any further ado, let's just start modeling this sofa. Remember guys, we go much slower during our course, so if you cannot catch up right now, don't worry about it. We're going to still be able to do this, and if you want, you can visit our website, it's Viz Academy, and just check out our offer. It's a very interesting course. A lot of our students are already in the chat, so you can ask them about sofa pillows wrinkles. Here we come. So as you can see, this is again a very easy model, but once we add a little bit of turbo smooth on it, we're getting a really nice effect. So let's just start from simply checking out what kind of object we need to do first. So this is going to be my reference, and let's just start by creating a box. A box is a really nice thing to start with almost all the objects you're going to create in your career. It's going to start at with box at some point. So set up the height of your object. In this case, I'm going to simply set up, can you slow the settings in YouTube? Yes, you can do that, but I think at this moment, since we're live, we're just going to continue as we are. So again, let's just scale this down so we actually match what we need, but to not obstruct the view, I'm going to copy this aside and just simply go ahead and create an instance. This instance is going to behave as the same in here, so let's just continue working out here. First thing that I want you to do is select two sides of your box, add a little bit of inset to it, and this is going to allow us to add a little bit more detail later on. So your next step is to go for edge constraints and change it to normal. Here we're going to select the z-axis and push it a little bit outwards, so we're going to get a little bit of thickness to our object. Now I think this is a little bit too thick in the middle, so let's scale this down a notch. Remember to let go of the constraints, and we're going to use none at this moment. Since we're here, we're going to again select this ring around here. So double click on this edge, sub object level 2, and double click on this edge here. So sub object level 2 again. What we're going to do now is simply chamfer this, so we get this nice effect going on. So once we do that, we're going to change it to triangular chamfer, and let's just continue with something around 2 centimeters, half a centimeter. That is going to be enough, because we're going to create this fine detail here just in one mesh. So let's just go for it and add it in, and now this is it. We almost did everything we had to, but of course we need to do a little bit more. So now, since we already have this selection, what we're going to do next is add extrude. So click on extrude, but go for settings of this. So as you can see, it already looks really bad, so we need to well, tone it down a little bit. Make sure that we have those settings a little bit lower. So as you can see, we're basically making this inwards as we go. So make this as thin as possible, so something around 1/10 of a millimeter is going to do the trick, and try to go inwards half a centimeter, so it's not going to be ridiculously large. So this is going to be something like this, and at this moment it doesn't really yet look that good. That's why we can simply add turbo smooth to check what we have created. And as you can see, this is actually looking quite nice, and this is going to allow you to create a lot of pillows for your sofas, a lot of objects that will really benefit out of this technique. But let's now go a little bit further and add more detail to our object. So since I want it to be nice and round, I'm going to simply select those edges, ring them, and add 2 more edges just to save those edges from any further deformation. I want it to be flat, so let's just add those 2 connections. Again, connect by settings, change it to 2, and now we have this 1 connection here. Okay, your next step is to add connections in the middle. So we're just going to connect this as we go. So let's just connect once and move it to the left side, because we're going to do a trick again, because as you can see, we have this weird angle going on, and just modeling this is going to take us ages, right? So why not use a few tricks that we know, and we can actually teach you something that is going to be very helpful in your future career. So again, let's move this a little bit closer to the edge. Okay, this is going to be just right. And let's create 2 connections now. So one is going to go here and one goes here. So move this 1 connection a little bit lower, so it's going to protect this border around here, and this one, the top one, is going to protect the border up here. So we don't need to protect this border yet, and we do not need to chamfer this yet, because now when we turbo smooth this, you can see that it's looking just right. And this is how you can do a size of your sofa. But I promised you that we're going to actually add a little bit of detail to it. So let's just go ahead and add 2 more connections. Again, connect and just add it in. You can scale it down to make them flat if you will, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at any point of this webinar. So now I'm going to select those 4 polygons in the middle and push them a little bit. So I'm going to get this nice pillowy effect later on. So just push it a little bit, don't go too far, and make sure that you have this border protection. And as you can see, we're doing this just to get a little bit nicer effect. So we have this one side pushing and being a little bit more cozy than the other one. I think we could basically move one of those edges a little bit further away, so we're going to get even better effects. So let's move this downwards, again downwards, and we're going to get a bit better effect this way. So as you can see, it's getting nice and smooth, but we're getting a little bit of pinching around here. So to avoid it, we can relax this by increasing the distance between those edges. We don't want to necessarily create this edge too far away, but you can move it just as I did right now, and the pinching is not going to be visible right now. So you know what guys, I'm going to move to another view so you can see a little bit more, because the background got a little bit distracting. So now, as you can see, everything is working just fine. Now we can check out the turbo smooth. We no longer have any kind of pinching, and we basically ignored this one side. And why did we do that? Because we're not being lazy, we're just being very productive. We're not wasting time on something that we don't need to care about. Create this one extra shape in the middle and scale it down as we go. So delete the back of it and pull it out as far as you can. Something like this is going to be just perfect. Now your next step could be just simply creating just cutting this at 45 degrees and trying to extrude it outwards, but this is not what we're going to do. What we're going to do instead is simply add symmetry modifier on top of this object. So let's just go for symmetry, add it in, and now press 1 and E to rotate this object's axis. So we're just going to manipulate this mirror as far as we can. So we're just going to make sure that the shape is going to suit our needs. Remember that we used microscopic scale values in this case, so we're going to have to make sure that the threshold of our weld is really small, so we don't lose any detail in our object. So make sure that you make this threshold as small as you need to. Just make sure that it's not 0, just 1.001. It's going to be enough. It's the smallest value you can type in. Convert this object back to editable poly, and we're going to instantly have this shape selected. So let's just take this edge, again, chamfer it, and we're going to change this chamfer from whatever this is happening to quad chamfer. In this case, it's going to instantly save us from any further work. So let's just move this outwards and add a little bit of tension to it, so you can see that now it's looking a little bit more intelligently. It's actually starting to get a really nice shape. And again, you don't have to do it for most of the sofas, but sometimes you're going to have those corner sofas, and this is one of the best methods I know, the fastest one. So once you master this, you're going to be able to do all of this. Again, we can select this middle object and just move it inwards, so we're going to get this nice effect. So it's cut in, so again, it's going to be nice and pillowy. Since this turbo smooth is going to create a little bit of pinching, you can add a little bit more edges on the middle. So let's just do that. So let's connect. Just once is enough, and here we're going to need a little bit more because this edge is going to be way longer. So don't be precise about it. Most of the time when you go off 1 or 2 centimeters on an object like a sofa, it's going to be okay. They never manufacture them precisely, so you know, it's going to be more or less 1 centimeter off always, because they can stuff the pillows a little bit differently, and that's enough to make it look different. Now this is going to be enough to create this back, but we still need to create this nice pillow around here. We're going to basically follow the same rules as we did right now, so I'm not going to bore you by doing exactly the same, but we're still going to try to align it here, so you can see that it's working really nicely. Move it a little bit further to the front. This can be scaled down just so it's going to be easier for us to understand where it is. Okay, Alt B background and close file option. Nice, thank you, Anne. Okay, turbo smooth, and let's delete this objects back right now because we don't need it, the original one, we don't need it now because we have much better model created by ourselves. So let's just go through this whole process to create this bottom part, but in reality I'm only going to copy one part of my object, so let's just go for it. So this object is copied now, and let's create a new object. I'm reusing this sofa because why not? You already created it, so why not use it to its maximum extent and just simply use it as the base of your sofa. So again, rotate it by 90 degrees. We don't need this to be any further here because we're not going to look at the bottom of it, so we can delete it. And again, let's go a little bit further and put it up here. So this is going to be enough to basically cover all our needs. Again, we cannot really work with this because we're missing a half. What can we do about it? We can simply try to add a symmetry to it. So let's just go for it and do it right away. Symmetry, convert to editable poly, but stop before you do that. Make sure that you actually add this threshold because it's very important that you do that. We're working with small numbers from the very beginning, and you don't want to lose any detail. If you get this problem as I did right now, that means that your mirror was incorrectly placed. So go back and just move it a little bit to the left, and once you don't have any problems, convert it back to editable poly, and this is now going to be a full loop, so you can delete this edge again. Okay, so what are we going to do, guys, about this one L-shaped element? So we could basically try to model everything out again, but that would basically take us a little bit more time, and using symmetry is not exactly going to be the best cookie cutter here. So what can we do about this? Guys, any suggestions? Why is Corona better than V-Ray? Mostly because it comes with a lot of nice presets for beginners. It's going to help you learn 3D rendering way faster, and because it's going to allow you to work way faster because you don't have to know all this gibberish stuff about sampling, about types of light that you need to do, anti-aliasing types. There's a lot of technical stuff where if you want to start using V-Ray efficiently, you have to be a master in V-Ray to work efficiently in it. With Corona, you just have to be good enough and have basic knowledge of it just to start working, and along the way you can learn new stuff and be more creative with it. And as we are creating our course mostly for creative people, so architects, students, and designers, basically, of course, 3D artists are welcome, but because I'm talking about creative people, it's going to allow you to work with your creative stuff way longer than you would in the case of V-Ray, where you just have to spend hours on just useless stuff that nobody likes to do, and well, it's just a waste of time, as I said. So correct, working with 5 years with V-Ray, and now Corona is much better and easy to handle. That's right, Lagaris. That's right, because Corona allows you to be more creative, be a designer, be an architect, be a person that actually creates, not recreates. That's super important because Corona just allows you all this stuff. I'm really impressed with this rendering engine, and now we're going to add this L shape here. There's a lot of ways you can approach this, but I think mine is going to be a little bit easier than any regular method. So let's just try to do it as fast as possible. So first thing I can do is cut this object out because I no longer need it, and also cut this part out because it's going to be an obstruction. At this point, I got this 45 degrees edge that I'm going to use to basically create a little bit extra shape. So now let's rotate it by 90 degrees. So since I know this was 45 degrees, I can basically trace it down, and as you see, this is taking me seconds to create. Without talking again, it would take me a little bit less time, but since this is a webinar, I really want to show you all the details. So scale it down until it's flat and try to align it as best as you can, just to fit those parts again. And it's going to work exactly as it's supposed to, because we started here. So as you can see, it's going to fit just right in. So since this is now connected, we can scale it down again, make sure that everything is aligned properly, and it is. So we need to add weld to it. So just go for as small value as you can again, because it's the same principle as with symmetry, and we're left with this small hole that we don't really want. For that, we're just going to take care of it with a little bit more topology. So connect, add it in, and during our course, I'm going to show you also a little bit more advanced techniques of modeling. Our current group is really getting there, and I'm basically going to start sending them a little bit of plugins. But since this is actually going to be also helpful for those of you that just tuned in, I'm going to show you the same plugins that our group is going to get soon. But of course, I'm going to go into detail about this beautiful tool a little bit later during our regular course experience. So now let's just move this here. Everything really seems to be set up, so everything is quite okay. Let's press X, make sure that everything is welded correctly, and there's some opening around here. So where is it exactly? Let's move it closer now. You know what? I'm going to just ignore this and select this as I go. Select this, deselect, and bridge it, because this time I don't have to weld it. I'm just going to use bridge instead. So this time we just need to set it up, and yeah, let's just cap it. Rapid quad cap, which was already introduced during our course, is not really going to work here. So I'm going to do the manual labor myself and actually do it for the 3ds Max, because it seems that Max is being a little bit lazy right now. So what I'm missing, okay, so there's one line missing. Connect. Okay, and as I said, we're going to use a rapid quad cap. So X, you know what, guys? I'm actually a little bit lost, so let's go for topology, rapid quad cap, and just click it there. So as you can see, we fixed it in a second. Now, what is very important, we're going to have to do a little bit of trickery. So we're going to add a little bit of our topology. So we have quite dense mesh again, because we're going to add a lot of detail. And it does on Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is a very powerful tool that is going to revolutionize the industry at some point, but you need to know that at this point it's not really going to be a good idea to invest into this software, because it's just not yet there. We would basically move to Unreal Engine if it was that efficient as they try to market it. At this moment, it's just not there. It's really hard to set up. There's a lot of, the learning curve is really annoying. And guys, I think it's a good moment to do a small segue to talk about our course, because as you know, guys, we're doing this so you can learn a little bit more about Viz Academy, and we're basically creating this online course that will allow you to become a professional in just 7 weeks. That is not, no other course can give you what we offer, because apart from just webinars where we basically will give you a lot of hints, tips, tricks, and a lot of interesting information about 3ds Max and how to use it, we're also going to teach you how to basically use this program for your day-to-day work. We're going to teach you how to how professionals work, and of course, apart those webinars that I mentioned, where we offer you a support that is going to be something that no other company can offer you. Whenever you have any problem or you are stuck with 3ds Max, you can always ask me, Anne, or any of our support for help. We will simply log in and help you to solve any problems you have. By the way, guys, check out our website. There's a lot of great reviews from our students. Those are real people, and you can basically check this out. And remember, if we cannot teach you anything, remember, we guarantee money back. That's nothing. That's something that nobody else can offer you, because we are that sure of our course. We're just so confident. We know that our course is the best on the market, but remember, this is not something for everybody. This is a course that you can pretty much think of as well, something really special. So as I said, it's going to be for those people that can go a little bit extra. That's why we offer you 7 weeks of classes. That's 3 webinars a week, where we will be meeting at 7 p.m. London time for webinars that are going to be at least hour long. On those webinars, we're going to go through all of your work, all of your progress, and your group progress. Remember, groups are never large. We try to keep them as small as possible, just so all of you can get the best experience, but we work with individual tutors, so that means that you are never left alone. If one of the tutors is busy, there's always somebody to help you out. And right now you can sign up for interior and exterior course. This is our best seller, so join in, because a number of places is limited, and first to pay is first to get it. So first to come, first to serve. We're starting our course next group on 7th of May, so not a lot of time is left, especially that we're running out of spots. So at this moment, when we basically created this sofa part, we still need to make it nice and chunky, right? So let's use this part as our base. So we're going to copy this to the top, and we're going to stretch it out a little bit. So let's just do that. We don't need any parts of this top that we created right now for this object, because it's just not needed. So we created this nice L shape that is going to look tremendously good when rendering, because we have no pinching and it's just going to be nicely covered. So let's delete this for a second and move a lot of vertices up and down so we get the desired effect. First of all, what I'm going to do is select only only the top of it, so I can add a 4x4 modifier on top of this and select only those elements that I need to move. So it's basically going to be the middle, and let's just put it up a little bit, so we're getting a little bit of this nice chunky sofa. So let's just move it a little bit up again, so it's going to be nice and cozy. And at this point, I think we can go a little bit further and add push modifier on top of it, so it's going to make it a little bit softer again, but don't go too far with it, because we don't want to destroy our seams. So only 2 millimeters is going to be enough, and let's just continue, convert to editable poly. Okay, so I told you we're going to add a lot of detail to it, and let's just do the wrinkles, right? And then I nearly got my first client for 3D, but I replied to them late and lost the offer. Oh, that's bad. You always need to actively reply to your clients. Some of them are going to really take this personally if you don't reply to them. We always try to reply to all of our students as fast as we can, because we know that we basically know that you value your time more than anything else, and we need to accommodate that. So let's just move this a little bit to the ground, so it's going to almost touch. Convert this to editable poly. Notice that I added turbo smooth on top of this object, and I also added this editable poly again, so we're getting quite dense mesh in this case. So this is intentional because we're going to use it to create wrinkles. Wrinkles are really something hard to pull off, so those of you that are not advanced enough, you can basically just skip this part again, but those of you that are intermediate are going to enjoy this. I'm not going to add this detail to all of this sofa because I would have to go a few steps back before I added those chunks, because then I would be able to copy some parts of it. But let's just start from the very middle and start adding this cut. So cut is going to allow you to go through all of this object and just simply go through all those parts that you can see. So at this point we're going to add those nice wrinkles as we go. So again, this is going to be a part of those well, pretty advanced techniques that people don't really talk about online for some reason, and we're going to share it with you because I think it's time that people actually learn something really interesting. So once you add all of this, you can see that I'm adding only those cuts around my seam, because at this point I don't want to destroy it, because adding wrinkles on it would be actually a little bit silly. So what is very important is that using this cut tool, make sure that the icon of your mouse looks exactly like the one I have now, so it's flat. And when it is, you go from one spot and you finish in the middle of another edge. So you can go as far as to the seam, but make sure that you don't end up in the middle creating something like this, because this is not exactly what we go for. Now press number 2 to select all of those edges, and we're going to randomly deselect some of them just so we get a little bit more randomization into our seams. Of course, if we had a little bit denser mesh than we had right now, it would be even better, but we didn't need it to be like that, so we just ignore that. And this is going to be just a quick introduction to this, so you don't have to be super precise to it. And if you want, you can just create this on a small patch of your mesh, then simply copy this mesh, reattach it, and simply start there, because as you can see, it's very simple and it's going to be very powerful. Now we change our local constraints, we change our constraints to local, and we go in the z-axis inwards. So make sure that we go inwards just a little bit, so it's going to look something like this. At this point you already see that it's kind of forming those wrinkles, but if we add turbo smooth on top of it, this is how you create wrinkles like this. And if you go a little bit further and basically make sure that you go all the way and just create this nice wrinkles, and just please notice that this is just a copied element with noise modifier, so there's a lot of trickery going on here. So before I added those chunks, I had to copy this mesh a few times. So as you can see, this is looking really nice, and if you go a little bit further and add a little bit more of this chaos onto your object, you're going to get nice wrinkles. At this point you can basically see what we're going on about. So let's just scale it down so you can understand a little bit more what I'm doing. So let's just grab this, scale it down and compress this, sorry, Let's compress this so it's going to look a little bit better, because you know we need those wrinkles to be really dense. And at this point you can see that all of those wrinkles are looking amazingly good, and this is something that is not going to be easy for anybody. So in this case you can basically remember this trick, because it's going to allow you to go way further than anybody else. So the next trick I want to give you is this nice selection of the middle scene. So we're just going to select this. Again, let's just go for soft selection now. Use soft selection and make sure that this fall off is not too big, just a little bit, something around 6 centimeters for this object is going to be enough. So let's cut this modifier off now, right now, and let's add a little bit more of those wrinkles. By the way, guys, for those of you that just tuned in, this is a quick method of modeling sofas, modeling objects in 3ds Max. You know what, 5 centimeters is way too much. I'm going to go for 1 centimeter and still it's going to look good. So let's just jiggle it a little bit more. So convert to editable poly again. And on top of it, we're going to add turbo smooth. And now we have nice organically looking sofa that is going to be a tremendous add-on to any of your objects. But let's imagine that we finished modeling our object already, and let's talk about for a second about our course. Guys, those of you like Sandra that is already joined our course can vouch for us. And on top of the webinars, homework, specialized tasks, support, you also get more than 40 hours of videos that were created especially for you. All the materials that we send to you are yours to keep. You can use them for your educational purposes as many times and as long as you like. Well, what can I say? We still keep touch with people from our previous groups, because from time to time they do have some questions that at some point come up, and working as a professional you want to have somebody who you can rely on. And proudly I can tell you that we do not ignore our students. We try to make sure that every question is answered. It may be not immediate once in a while, but we're going to answer all your questions. So let's continue. And those of you that would like to check out our offer, remember, number of places is limited. Right now I believe we have a maximum of 10 spots, so it's going to go down. The number is going down already during this webinar. And let's make sure that you also remember that we need to add pillows to our sofa. That's why we're going to talk a little bit about Marvelous Designer. So Marvelous Designer is an totally different software. Unfortunately, 3ds Max simulation of cloth is just garbage. That's why you can use a Marvelous Designer, especially that it has this nice trial version that will allow you to create a lot of garments and a lot of interesting objects into yours to add to your scenes, like we did with the bed. So let's just move on and open our project in our Marvelous Designer right now. So I'm going to show you quickly my setup for very basic pillows. So the same pillows as you can see here are added in our scene all over the place, so it's not going to be something that you can miss. Pillows are essential for your scene to look good, and there's a lot of them that you should be adding. So guys, let's just make sure that you remember how to do them. So let's move back to our Marvelous Designer for now. I know that I told you that we're going to use solely 3ds Max, but pillows Honestly, I usually download them or just repurpose them from previous packages, previous models, because simulating them for all of your sofas is a little bit silly. We can readjust them at any time, but once you're done with them, you'll be able to reuse them many times. First thing I'm going to do in this scene is just import my sofa. So previously I exported it as FBX, the finished project. So let's just import it in. Yes, this is not a T-pose model, and as you can see, it's looking good. So now we're going to select all of those objects, move them on top of our sofa just like that, and allow them to fall down onto it. Basically, what you probably want to do is position them a little bit more intelligently so they will look a little bit better, but in this case I'm just doing a quick preview of the Marvelous Designer. This is not the core element of our course, but this is something for those of you guys that are already our students. You're going to get a little bit more videos on this sofa simulation, and of course those of you that finished our course, we're not done with you yet. You are getting those videos at the end of this month before our next group starts. You're going to get a package of how to start with Marvelous Designer and how to create pillows just like this, how to create beds. During our course we will be talking about beds, but right now we're just finishing the videos, so later on we will answer a few questions from you guys. So basically I'm going to go back to our website to talk a little bit more about the course, because you know that this is the core element of Viz Academy. I cannot really state how good the course is, especially that we have our own students in the audience that are vouching for us. Please visit our Instagram and follow us there, because we post almost daily tutorials, a lot of tips and tricks. We have a lot of interesting stuff for you guys waiting. Okay, I'm not logged in on this computer. So basically what I wanted to show you guys is that we post a lot of interesting work there, especially interesting for you because all of those renders are created by our students only. Apart from the videos, of course, because those are created by us, and if we do post something that was created by our tutors or our staff, you will know about it, but everything else, every render added in here is created by our students, and we do not touch them. I mean, we help along the way, but you will be able to create this in just 7 weeks, basically 4 or 5 depending on well, you'll get a little bit more information later on. So I think that right now we're going to go back to finishing our sofa. So let's just unhide all. I'm going to copy the sofa that we created. So I'm going to put it in our scene again. And along the way, I'm going to grab those 2 chairs because we're running out of time for today. And I think that right now, guys, remember that this is, we're running out of spots on our course. So if you want to join in, just do it now, and email us if you have any questions. In my experience, this course is the best I have ever taken. Thank you. That's actually nice, Jordan. That's really nice of you. So guys, as you can see, this is really amazing that our students come to our audience to talk about our course, to basically help us out. Okay, just in an hour and a half, we were able to create all of this interesting stuff. Unfortunately, we won't be able to create this armchair during this live webinar, but I think we're going to create a separate set of videos on modeling stuff just like this, so you can finish this as soon as possible. So guys, this is going to be it for today, because I think we cannot prolong this anymore. There's an option that we're going to expand on this whole experience a little bit more, and we're going to basically add a little bit more days to this because we actually have really nice turnout. So let's just make sure that we all remember that this is not a single webinar. This is a series of webinars where we will be continuing working on this interior, and we're going to guide you through all the steps along the way. So maybe a few extra steps are going to be needed because I'm pretty sure you also want to create something as amazing as this render. So if you are interested in that, well, why not stay with us? In just a few days, we're going to create another webinar. So buckle up because it's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon. We're going to teach you how to do all those tricks that I'm showing you right now, and those are really going to be game changers for those of you that are just missing a little bit in your day-to-day work, and you just didn't know what you're doing wrong. What you were doing wrong is not joining our course. Now, when you do, you're going to pretty much understand how to work as a professional. Remember, in just 2 days, we're going to do another webinar. We're going to go through materials and basic lighting. We're going to finish up some modeling, and all of the models that I haven't really talked about are going to be sent to you, of course, with some limits because the bed has some copyrighted content. So we're going to also add as many objects into the scene as we can. So guys, please visit VizAcademy.uk and visit our Instagram. Follow us on YouTube, Skype, and whatever medium wherever medium you find us. And whenever you are on our YouTube channel, subscribe because we're going to post a lot of tutorials from now on. And of course, you want to be informed when we actually host our second webinar about lighting, then materials and rendering. So guys, thank you very much for your attention, and we're going to continue in just 2 days. Thank you again, and see you during the next webinar.